electric show. Coach Mangini is here. You know, the knock on Brock Purdy is that he's just a game manager who doesn't carry his team. Just Mr. Irrelevant put in a happy situation. Well, while preparing to host the Packers, Brock pulled the old 8 Mile defense. Actually, I am a game manager. Take a listen.
I sort of take it as a compliment in terms of being a game manager and assistant quarterback. I feel like, you know, if you can do that well and be consistent in that, like, you're going to win games by doing that. So I sort of take it as a compliment at times, too.
Okay.
Well said. Well said, young man.
Nick, is it more likely Purdy is the reason the 49ers win or lose?
This week?
No,
it's way more likely he's the reason they lose, but they won't lose. I don't think they're going to lose. Let me make it clear. Like I think it's very, very tough for the Niners to lose in this spot. They're the healthier, more experienced, more well-rested team. This is why you fight for the 1 seed, not only to get the bye, but you then get the team almost by definition that was least likely to win the previous round, because you get the worst available seed, a team that is, I don't want to say had their Super Bowl last week. I don't want to disrespect what they did. But the Packers, that was a hell of a moment for them.
Can't lose.
And I understand, yeah, can't lose. There you go. I understand we argued about how good the Packers defense is or isn't, and they looked very good against Dallas. But I don't think that Packers defense is going to be able to handle the Niners' weapons, the Shanahan offense, and what Purdy's going to do. I don't think they're going to be able to handle it. So the only way, Coach, I could see the Niners losing is if Purdy melts down. I'm not predicting it. It's not what I think is going to happen. But if you were to ask me, more likely that people are like, oh, my God, Brock Purdy carried us to victory, or oh, my God.
Yeah, if they lost.
If they lost, I think the only way they can lose is Purdy mistakes.
Yeah,
Well, go ahead, Coach.
It's interesting when you watch these guys, and I agree with you, Nick. The only way they're going to lose is if Brock Purdy melts down, and they shouldn't. They have the advantage in almost every area. And when you look at the season, during his 3-game losing streak, it was like three touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Right. They scored 17 points. The game against Baltimore, I think it was 19 points. So when it goes bad for San Francisco, it goes really bad. When it goes good, it's extremely good. 9 out of their 12 wins were 30-plus points per game. The 3 losses were like 20, or the 3 other wins were like 28, 27, 27. So you know pretty early on how it's going for San Francisco.
Right.
Like if they start hot and they're rolling, very rarely does that avalanche slow down. And the problem is, if they get in those tight games, Purdy hasn't shown the ability to pull them out of that. Right. And that's the continuing question with the guy.
No matter what he does, I mean, I agree with you guys, they're going to win this game. But even if he goes out and plays great, because they have 4 All-Pros, a lot of people aren't going to give him credit for leading them to victory. Like, that's my argument. Like, he's not stepping in when it's 21-0 and now he's the quarterback. He's creating that lead as well. And then when you look at this team, like when they beat Dallas, he had 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. But somehow a lot of people, Christian McCaffrey, who had 51 yards on 19 carries, led the team. No, Purdy led the team. McCaffrey, as great as he is, cannot lead this team to victory because they're not that type of team, and he's not that type of back. He's not Earl Campbell. Like, he's not going to – they're not going to just give it to him 25 times or even passing it as well, and he's going to carry them. This is a true team. Like, Debo is great. I'm serious. Like, as great as Debo is, he's not going to carry him. As great as Kittle or Trent Williams are, they're not going to carry them. Brock Purdy is the one with the ball in his hands. If Brock Purdy doesn't cook, they're not going to like hold him to 8 or 10 passes like they did with Garoppolo. Purdy has to be good for them to win. And so I'm just saying he should get some credit.
I don't think he has to be good for them to win. I just think he can't be awful. I think that
he hasn't just been good, though. No, he's been great.
Okay, I understand he has so this is where we get. This is where I guess it's just the way you look at it. I don't look at credit as a resource, an infinite resource. There's only so any credit you give to one player is credit that doesn't go to someone else. That's the whole reason we discuss it. So when we are talking about the Niners, the Cowboy game maybe is an outlier. I do think Christian McCaffrey is leading them on offense. I think the defense is game planning to stop him. I think one of the reasons those passing lanes are so open is because you have an extra person dedicated in the box because of McCaffrey. I look at McCaffrey as the tip of the spear, and I am not saying Purdy is not taking advantage of it.
I mean, seriously, they went to the, just like you hold it against Purdy that they went to a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. They also went to that Super Bowl with Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson as well.
I would argue that offense,
and running the ball more than they do now.
Right. I would argue that Super Bowl team was actually led by their defense. I thought that defense for the Niners the year they played the Chiefs was number one defense in football. This year it is not that. If you were coordinating the Packers, are you going into the game saying we have to stop Purdy or we have to stop McCaffrey?
Yeah, it's McCaffrey. You better stop McCaffrey. And the problem with McCaffrey is every time they drop back to pass, you can throw him a check down because you got to deal with all the other guys, and he turns that small play into 60 yards. And the issue with
Dallas shut him down.
But the issue with Purdy for me is not when things are going. When things are going well, it's awesome. It's when the rest of the team has hiccups, when things aren't going well, when you hit the potholes, his ability to pull them out of that, that's what he hasn't shown.
And Brew, I agree with you. He deserves credit for the left column. The worry for the Niners is the right column. I'm not saying he gets no credit for the 26 touchdowns and how well he's played at the beginning of games. Beginning of games, you're tied. He's obviously played great, you know what I mean, in those spots. But the right column right there is what they're worried about.
Well, until he does it, yeah, I mean, there's people going to feel that way.
But it's an odd situation. Like, you're rooting for the 49ers, but you also are kind of rooting against Christian McCaffrey.
No, I like
stop at the line.
No, I like.
But
in fact, in the preseason, he was my pick, if you remember, for offensive player of the year.
Which I think he might win.
Yeah.
So
I'm not against McCaffrey. I'm just saying his credit shouldn't come at the expense of Purdy.
You know what? Let's check that.
Because, like I said,
I do feel like he's just a little bit
no, I'll take another dunk.
I don't even remember doing that.
I remember that.
Other side.
I mean, I'm watching it just like, all right, and then I'm like, okay, and then he just keeps going somehow, and he's a special player, you know, best quarterback in the league for a reason.
Okay, you love that?
Well, though he's the best quarterback in the league. I mean, he's obviously not. I mean, I debated whether or not we should put Dalton Kincaid on the bulletin board. Hubbs talked me out of it. He said he has to say it about his teammate, and I said I don't do that.
You would agree with that?
No, if someone, I wouldn't.
I mean, it's close enough. I don't even think so. But Josh is a good enough player where your teammates going to say.
I don't know. If I were in that spot, I wouldn't say like Kevin Wildes is the best studio host in the world. I'd be like top two, him and Ernie Johnson.
For the record, Wildes,
like that's what I would say. You know what I mean? Like at some point, like there's somebody that's clearly above. But go ahead. What's the question here, Wildes? I don't think it was. Do I like that?
Oh, sorry.
It's a very different conversation piece that we're.